Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies for the delay. This is a maze at this campus. I don't know how many of you have been here before. This is my second time here, and it's still a maze. Okay, so do we all know why we're here today?
We're anxious.
We're anxious. What to do about that? How many of you have anxious students? So a lot of you. So would you say that you're here today mostly to learn tools for your students and what to do with them? Wouldn't you like to? All right. So first, what I want to do is explain to you what anxiety is. And to do that, what I want to do is I want to be able to put you in the same situation as a child would be if he or she was anxious. Okay? So I want you to use your imagination now. And I want you to imagine if one of your lost ones went missing. Does anyone have a picture of a loved one in their mind? Yes? A significant other, a child of your own, a sibling, a best friend. So if they were missing for about, let's say, 24 hours, how would you feel? From a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being absolutely no anxiety at all, you're fine with them being missing. 10 being the highest anxiety you've ever experienced in your entire life. Where would you be if they were missing at 24 hours? Yes?
27 billion.
That high, wow. Okay, well, we're going to have to talk with you later. Okay, so you're probably going to be at a 4-ish. Okay, we'll get to that later. You're probably at a 4-ish. Now let's say you try to connect with them, you're calling them, you're finding out where they are, and still no response. Now let's say it's 48 hours. Where has your anxiety gone up to? 8. Okay, some says 8, some says 10. I think it would be different though, because our anxiety is our subjective experience, right? So I think it would be different depending upon who this person is. If this person is a 4-year-old child, at 8 hours, I would be at an 8. If this is a person that I know is kind of flaky, well, at 24 hours, I'd be at a 2. They're probably doing their own thing, right? So it really depends upon who this person is. And that's what I want you to keep in mind here, that anxiety is our own subjective experience, okay? So if you can imagine, let's say a 4-year-old, for those of you who have a child, and if not for your significant other, let's say they're missing 3 days now. That raises the level, right? And if you can imagine, I don't know, I'm thinking of my loved one missing right now, and I'm starting to feel my heart race a little bit. If you can imagine that, that is where your students are. Those who are anxious, highly anxious, that's where they are all the time. Except when they're asleep. Okay, can you imagine that? Okay, so when you think about that, what else is on your mind? When you think about your loved ones being missing, are you able to think about anything else?
No.
Why not? Why?
It supersedes all other emotions.
Okay, it does. And because your thoughts are worried about that danger, and you're ruminating about what could happen to this person, about the uncertainties in life, about are they dead, are they alive, did they just leave and didn't tell me, right? It's all the uncertainties. Remember, it's all the uncertainties that keep your anxiety heightened. Okay? And uncertainty, doubt, is what drives anxiety. Okay? So now that we all have an subjective understanding of what anxiety is, I want to objectify it in a psychophysiological basis, framework, so that you can understand what it truly is internally, objectively. Okay? So, how many of us have heard of the fight-flight response? Well, I sure hope you guys know about that. Okay, so what is the fight-flight response? Adrenaline rush. Okay.
Sometimes you have to do things beyond your natural capacity.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, all right, yes.
I thought it was that everybody has either like one of those two reactions when something really, I don't know, something really bad happens or threatening,
Mhm.
either fight or you flight.
You're absolutely right. That's why it's called the fight-flight response. Absolutely. I saw that again somewhere. No? Okay. Yes.
Oh, I was just gonna say, either way, you're in a place of high stress.
Yes.
Physically,
Yes.
mentally.
Kind of like a survival mode.
It absolutely is. So let me explain this to you, why it happens. We've had the fight-flight response. In fact, all mammals have the fight-flight response. Now, why do we have it? You have to remember that the human body, or any mammal body, is equipped for survival. Okay? Your body is a very well-made machine equipped for survival. What does that mean? Well, let's take it back to the caveman days, because that's the classic example, right? Let's say you come out of your cave, and right in front of you is that saber-toothed tiger. And that saber-toothed tiger is thinking, dinner. In order for you to survive, certain mechanisms have to occur in your body so that you can either fight the saber-toothed tiger or run as quickly away as you can. Okay? What happens is that your autonomic nervous system triggers this fight-flight response without your control. It's out of your control, which is why it's controlled by the autonomic nervous system. Okay? So your fight-flight response is triggered, and certain mechanisms occur so that you're able to fight or run, whichever one you choose. Okay? So for example, your breathing intenses. Why does your breathing intense?
Get more oxygen to your body so that you can more productively fight or run.
Okay, so your organs, all of your organs need oxygen to survive, especially your muscles. Have you ever had a limb that fell asleep? Do you know why it falls asleep? Oxygen's not getting there. So without oxygen, your muscles cannot move. And if you can't move, you are going to be dinner in this situation. Okay? So your breathing intenses, your heart rate also increases. Why does your heart rate increase? What does your heart do?
It pumps blood with oxygen.
Absolutely. It carries the oxygen, circulates it throughout your system. Okay? Some other interesting facts. Your pupils began to dilate. Why in the world is that? Teachers.
So that MRIT can see things more clearly.
Okay, so you have more of a peripheral vision of what other potential dangers may there be, right? If there's one saber-toothed tiger, how in the world would I know there's not another or a third? Or maybe some hyenas waiting for it to finish me, right? Okay, your GI tract shuts down or slows down. Your GI tract is your gastrointestinal system, that shuts down. Why do you think that happens?
It's not essential.
I'm sorry, too many.
Blood has to go elsewhere for the emergency.
Blood has to go elsewhere, so it doesn't have time to metabolize in your GI tract, right? So if you think about it, if you are really running or fighting in this survival mode, you have no time to think about hunger. You have no time to think about getting your thirst quenched. So your GI tract shuts down. You have no time to think about, oh, I need to go to the bathroom now. Okay? So all of these mechanisms occur for you to be able to survive. Now, let's say, rather than seeing the saber-toothed tiger, you see, oh, a cute colored kitty cat. You come out of your cave, oh, there's that cute colored kitty cat. Is your fight-flight response going to trigger? Why not? No threat. The important question is, who perceives the threat? Who perceives the threat? We do, right? I have to basically take this information, process it, encode it, and perceive it as a threatening situation in order for it to trigger my autonomic nervous system and that fight-flight response. So what's happened is basically, for an anxious child, I call them antennas, okay? It's almost like their antennas are always up, and they're hyper-vigilant to any and all potential dangers there may be. There's a helicopter right now. Ooh, there might be a war. That's what an anxious child would think. Okay, they perceive all information as threatening. And if you remember earlier the example of the missing person, that's where they are all the time. Which is why they probably have a lesser, not probably, they do have a lesser capacity to process any other information. Okay? All right. So again, anxiety, there's a difference between our subjective experience and what it objectively is. Objectively, it is a sense of discomfort, right? However, you better think that you have your fight-flight response, because if it didn't, you would not be equipped to survive, and you would be lunch. Okay? So again, back to the previous example, if you had perceived the kitty cat as a kitty cat, you would be lunch. You would have misperceived it because your fight-flight response is not working adequately. So then what it comes down to is finding that balance of how to bring down those antennas and perceive our environment adequately, appropriately, for what it really is, rather than magnify and catastrophize, which is what an anxious child would do. okay? Now, if your antennas are up, do you think they go down? Sometimes, not too down though. They go down because you have to understand that we are learning beings. And our brains are very, very powerful. It's a very powerful machine. Okay? So we learn information. And we learn where's comfortable. Guess where is most comfortable? Home. Which is why if you have a student who has a fear of coming to school, because school may not be safe for them. Definitely not with, recent, in the last decade with all the school shootings. Not to heighten your anxiety here. Okay? So it's important to distinguish between normal anxiety levels, which is if I do see that saber-toothed tiger, my fight-flight response better work, and unhealthy ones, which is I don't want to go to school because I'm afraid something bad will happen there, that I may be kidnapped. Okay? Right. Some components of anxiety. You have your physical sensations, your headaches, nausea. How many of us experience those when we're anxious? And then our subjective experience, which is, again, the nervousness, the fears, the worries, the ruminations. Okay? So this is some of the physiological concomitants of anxiety. And anxiety is so widespread that it even causes danger to our mental health, to our physical health. Causes ulcers, heart disease. It lowers our immune system, raises our cortisol levels. Now, if our cortisol levels are heightened, how many of you think back to when you were in school and it's finals week and you're studying and you're studying and you're studying and you're really not sleeping, maybe you're overeating, or maybe you're not eating at all. However, you're just not getting any sleep. And then right after your very last final, you get sick. How many of you have experienced that? Definitely. Okay? And the reason being is because during that heightened state of arousal, when your mind is only thinking about studying, getting this material in, it is your fight-flight response that is keeping you awake. And when that happens, your body goes into survival mode. Your cortisol level gets your body into that survival mode. And when your cortisol level is up at that long duration, guess what happens to your immune system? It crashes because there's no more cortisol left by the time you're complete. Okay? So imagine a person whose cortisol level is that heightened for many years, over many years of their lives. Your immune system is going to be compromised, which means that you will be more prone to diseases, okay, and bodily ailments. Okay, so it is the most common mental, emotional, behavioral problem that occurs during childhood. Anxiety is the most common problem, okay? And unfortunately, it's often overlooked or misdiagnosed. Remember, if you're thinking about your loved ones being missing and you can't think about anything else, and let's say your teacher is trying to get you to pay attention and focus in class, and Are you able to, first of all? I might not even be able to go to class. I'd be so sick to my stomach that I wouldn't even be able to go to class. Guess what? I don't like to use the word, but guess what uninformed doctor would diagnose that problem with? I'm sorry?
ADD.
Absolutely. ADD. Because they're simply not able to pay attention, right? So it is very, very important to understand that just because a person is inattentive, it doesn't necessarily mean I've got ADD. I'm inattentive in many different scenarios. Doesn't mean I have ADD, right? You have to really understand what is being manifested. What is the underlying cause of this behavioral manifestation? Which is why we're here today, okay, to understand that. So, 13 out of every 100 child experiences some kind of anxiety disorder. That's a lot. How many kids do you guys have in your classrooms? 20. Okay. So if you put 3.5 of your classrooms together, you have about 13 kids there with an anxiety disorder. This isn't just our normal anxiety. And when does it become a disorder? Because you have to understand anxiety on a continuum. From those who have a very high threshold for stress and tolerance, and those who have very low threshold. So it's not categorical, you either have it or you don't. It's on a continuum. It becomes a problem when you become dysfunctional, when you're not able to function effectively at your tasks. That is when it's a problem, and that is when it's diagnosed. Okay? So with our younger children, we often see more of the separation anxiety and specific phobias. Okay? Usually younger children have phobias of animals, especially dogs or animals that may seem harmful. They may also have phobias over our natural environment. Earthquakes is a big one now because we've seen it twice in the last 2 months, right? In Haiti and Argentina. No, actually in Korea too.
Turkey just down.
Well, there we go. Why not be phobic of earthquakes? And we live in Southern California, and we're supposed to expect a big one. Did that heighten your anxiety? Okay, and with our older children, we see more of the social anxiety, generalized anxiety, and panic disorders. Okay. Usually if a child has separation anxiety, meaning that they are afraid of leaving their comfort zone, whether it's specifically their parents or their home, they also have panic attacks. And even if they overcome that phase where they're able to separate, they've already learned, their body has learned that sensation of panic attacks. And because they become fearful, panic disorder is basically a fear of the fear. You're fearing that physiological sensation occurring. So as soon as your heart starts palpitating, oh my God, there it comes again. Okay? And usually when a child has separation anxiety and they move away from the separation anxiety, because they're older now and they're able to individuate, the panic attacks will still evolve and occur. Yes?
I think you just answered my question. If you have separation anxiety as a child, does that mean that you won't develop panic disorder?
Does it mean that you will not develop panic disorder? Is that what you say?
No, that you will.
That you will. You have a higher
Higher
risk factor. Right. There's never a black or white answer. Yes. Okay. I specialize in obsessive-compulsive disorder. With obsessive-compulsive disorder, there are varying degrees. The statistics, most recent statistics shows about 1 to 3%. However, that's probably underrepresentation because we're still disseminating knowledge about that. So with obsessive-compulsive disorder, even though it's, I would say it's above 3% for children with OCD. So how many of you have observed a child with OCD before? Okay, so quite a few of you. Okay. So with all of these anxiety symptoms, the most difficult ones to treat is OCD and PTSD. They are the most difficult to manage, okay? Because with the rest of these, it's a more direct route. A person with panic attacks is going to be simply be afraid of their internal sensations. A person with a simple phobia is just phobic about one situation. When it comes to OCD, not only do you have an obsessive thought, you also have that compulsive behavior. So let me give you an example so you understand what it is, okay? Back to that example where you are worrying about that loved one. What are you going to do to see if they are okay? I'm sorry?
Call.
You're going to call, okay? Let's say they don't answer. What are you going to do?
Look for them.
Call
You're
obsessively.
You're going to call, okay, so now calling doesn't work. You're going to call people they know and harass everyone else. Okay? What else? Let's say calling other people. I've got no clue where they are either. Now what are you going to do?
Search.
Search?
Look
Search
for
what?
them. Look for where maybe they.
So you're actually going to go out and look. Okay? Let's say you go out and look and that doesn't work. Then what?
Wait.
Wait. You're going to wait. How long are you going to wait?
They'll either show up or until my anxiety.
Ah, absolutely. Until they show up or until your anxiety goes up again, right? Okay. That is basically what OCD is. Your ruminations, your worries are your obsessive thoughts. Okay? Your compulsive behaviors is when you call. And your calling may suffice for a few minutes, and your anxiety goes down, well, you put some sense into your head, maybe they're actually okay. And then after a few minutes, maybe even a few hours, your anxiety is going to go right back up. And then what are you going to do? You're going to call again. You're going to call again, call again, call again, call again until that calling doesn't serve any purpose anymore. And then you switch gears. You're going to call their friends, people they may know. You're going to keep doing that until that doesn't work anymore. And then you switch gears. I'm going to actually go out and search. Right? That is the compulsive behavior. Every time when I do a compulsive behavior, it may satisfy relief, my anxiety, just a tad bit, enough. However, it doesn't mean that worry won't come back up. That worry will always come back up as long as your person is missing. Right? Okay? And as soon as that happens, that heightened anxiety, you got to do something to relieve that anxiety again. The problem with doing that compulsive behavior is that each time with OCD, there is no relief. It's a false sense of relief. Because that thought will come back up. Let's say you never get to find your missing person. Will you ever have relief? That is what OCD is. Okay, so now you have an understanding of when a child washes, why that child washed, or when that child touches certain things. All of those ritualistic behaviors, some may be logical to an extreme, and some may be completely irrational. So if I tap, maybe nothing bad will happen. Okay? That is OCD. That is why it's so much more complicated to treat OCD, because you have a web of obsessive thoughts and compulsive behavior, and if you don't catch it early by the time that they're adults, guess what? That calling isn't going to work. They're going to figure out something else and something else and then something else, and then before you know it, you've got a bunch of many different rituals associated with this one fear. And some of them they may not even remember anymore. Okay? The other one that I said was some other more difficult anxiety disorder is PTSD. The reason why PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is the other more difficult is because of that emotional response, that expressed emotion or lack of. Okay? And also with PTSD, we know that they do have their compulsive behaviors as well. Their compulsive behavior is avoidance. Avoidance of all triggers of their memory. Okay? Now we all know that we avoid our thoughts. So how many of you have asked your kids to just stop thinking about your worries? How many of you have asked your kids to just divert their attention and just stop, knock it off, don't think about that? Okay, all right. So, guess why that doesn't work? I want all of you right now to not think of the yellow duck. Why are you laughing? Don't think of the yellow duck. Don't think of the yellow duck. Don't think of the yellow duck in the blue pond with that green tree next to it. Why are you guys laughing?
Drawing the picture.
Okay, it's the power of suggestions. And let me just quickly explain to you why that occurs. Okay? You have 5 senses, right? You have your visual, your hearing, your smell, taste, and touch. From the time that you are developing in your mother's womb, those 5 senses are developing. Once they are fully developed, do any of those senses ever turn off? Yours turn off?
I can't smell or taste right now.
Right now, are you sick?
In the last year.
Okay, then there must be
Something's going on.
something's wrong with it. Okay, well,
We're checking.
I'm sorry to hear that.
It's terrible.
Yes, you need to go get it checked by
I am.
ENT.
I am.
Okay. So for the rest of us, where it's functioning, okay, well, before a year ago, did it ever turn off?
No.
Okay, all right. So they don't ever turn off, these 5 senses, even in your sleep. When you're asleep, your senses are still on, right? I would hope so. So you have these 5 senses that is always absorbing information from the environment. You may not be aware of the yellow chairs that you're sitting on, or the sounds outside of this room. However, it doesn't mean that your senses aren't absorbing this information. Okay? Which is why at any given 60 seconds, you have about 1 million different stimuli entering and exiting your mind, whether it's within your awareness or out of it. That's a lot of material going through your mind, right? Now, what allows us to focus on any one thought, on any one thing, that yellow chair, is our ability for selective attention. We choose whether we want to focus on the yellow chair, or that whiteboard, or the screen. Okay, so we choose. And when you tell someone not to think of something, what are you actually doing?
They don't hear the noise.
You're directing their attention onto that thing that you don't want them to think about. Which is why, you know, a lot of child psychologists who work with parents tell their parents to not use the word don't. Because when you use the word don't, you're actually just focusing their attention onto that behavior that you do not want them to engage in. Same thing with your thoughts. If you have a million different stimuli entering and exiting your mind, you have no control over what thoughts come in and out. You have no control over whether you're going to think about the person you're worried about, or being here listening to this talk right now. What you do have is selective attention, what you choose to pay attention to. Okay? Yes?
My son had a baseball coach
Uh-huh.
that used to tell him to just throw strikes, which I thought was brilliant because he wasn't saying, oh, don't walk this guy, because he just want to throw one ball right after the other. But when it was just throw strikes, it was concentrating on that
Yes?
one positive thing he needed to do. And you could see his anxiety just, I can do that, I can do that. So,
Excellent. That's a good example. Other questions? Okay. All right, where are we now? So going back, no, it's okay. So the previous slide basically showed the percentages of kids with anxiety disorders, and I think you have that in your handout, so we don't really need to review it. Okay? So then the question goes to, what does anxiety do to a child? Well, is it going to interrupt your attention?